Please don't spill it. I have white on.
Committee on Homeland Security will come to order. Without objection, the chair may declare committee in recess at any point. Without objection, I seek unanimous consent that the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Alford, be permitted to sit with the committee and ask questions of the witnesses. The purpose of today's hearing is to assess the information sharing environment and the security operations among our federal, state, local, and non-government partners ahead of a record number of major national events. Chair reminds all members that the chair will enforce the rules of decorum at all times and urges all members to be mindful of their remarks. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Good morning. I want to start by thanking our witnesses for appearing before the committee today. The United States is preparing to host a mega decade of mass gathering events starting this summer with the 2026 FIFA World Cup and nationwide celebrations to mark the 250th anniversary of our nation. These events are an incredible opportunity to showcase the best of America, but they also will also require unprecedented collaboration between leaders at the federal, state, and local levels to secure the events and keep the public safe. Today, we will hear directly from some of those leaders about the security preparations already underway to ensure that we already meet this moment. The 2026 FIFA World Cup will be held throughout North America in June and July and will include more than 70 matches played in 11 different cities across the United States. With 5 million fans traveling to the U.S. and as many as 6 billion viewers expected worldwide, this will be the largest sporting event in history. Same time, America 250 celebrations will be held in communities across the country this summer to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Recognizing the years of planning that have already gone into these efforts, the committee established its task force on enhancing security for special events in the United States last spring to ensure continued prioritization of these events by Congress, federal agencies, and state, local, and private sector partners. I want to thank the task force chairman, Mr. McCall, and ranking member Ms. Poe for their leadership, and all members of the committee for their consistent engagement on these security preparations through the many briefings, hearings, and roundtables that have convened. Over the last year, Congress has taken concrete action to ensure the United States will be well-equipped and well-prepared for the months and years ahead. I'm proud of the role that this committee has played and will continue to play in moving these critical priorities forward. One of the greatest security risks facing our nation today is the malicious use of unmanned aircraft systems, or drones. The prospect of weaponized drones being used to attack mass gatherings in open-air stadiums is a scenario that keeps policymakers and law enforcement professionals up at night. In response to these threats, I was proud to work with the Trump administration and lead efforts to pass vital counter-UAS authorities for state and local law enforcement in the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, which will help support real-time mitigation efforts and counter the adversarial use of this technology. Republicans in Congress also provided historic security investments through the enactment of the One Big Beautiful Bill last summer, which included $625 million for the 2026 FIFA World Cup security and $500 million for state and local investments in counter-UAS capabilities. As we approach the 25th anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks later this year, this solemn milestone reemphasizes the importance of our collective mission in the face of constantly evolving threats. The Department of Homeland Security and this committee were both created after 9/11 to ensure that a similar attack on the United States would never happen again. In just the last 3 months, this committee has heard directly from Secretary Noem and leaders from several DHS components, including TSA, CBP, and CISA, whose agencies will play critical roles in safeguarding these events. 25 years later, the threat landscape has not diminished. It has intensified, diversified, and evolved in ways that demand constant vigilance and decisive action. But DHS and the federal government cannot achieve this mission alone. Close collaboration, communication, and information sharing between federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, along with industry stakeholders and private sector partners, is essential. These games and festivities designed to bring people together in joy and celebration also present an array of targets for nefarious actors who seek to carry out violent attacks or exploit these gatherings for other illicit purposes. It is not an even playing field. The dedicated men and women who protect our communities every day must overcome these threats every single time. Those who seek to inflict harm only need to be right once. But that doesn't mean we give up. It means we must be prepared for every possibility and ready to combat any threat. The goal of today's hearing is to engage directly with representatives from law enforcement, host cities, and fusion centers that serve on the front lines of this whole-of-society security effort. Our shared objective is to ensure these partners are receiving the timely intelligence, resources, and coordination they need to carry out their responsibilities effectively and safeguard the communities they serve. If there are challenges, we have a collective responsibility to identify them and work together to find actionable solutions. Protecting public safety is not a partisan issue. It is imperative that we work together to do so. As chairman, I am committed to ensuring that all partners in this effort are receiving the support they need to succeed. I look forward to the witnesses' testimony today and to a productive discussion on how we can all work together on these efforts moving forward. I now recognize the gentlelady from New Jersey, Ms. Poe, for her opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. Good morning to all. Thank you so very much, Mr. Chairman, for calling this very important hearing. And welcome to our witnesses. I want to thank you for your valuable testimony that I know we're all going to be receiving from you today. I am stepping in for Ranking Member Thompson, who will be joining us momentarily. I serve as the ranking member of this committee's task force on enhancing security for special events in the United States. Our task force has a deeply important mission as our country prepares to host some of the world's largest gatherings and celebrations over the next 3 years. Events like the 250th anniversary of America's founding, the 78 matches of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games will put the United States on display for the entire world to see. I am particularly proud that the final match of the 2026 World Cup will be held in my district in northern New Jersey. And while the hospitality and the camaraderie of these events are exciting, it is essential that we ensure the safety and security of these mass gatherings. Both Congress and the executive branch have a responsibility to make certain that our state, our local, tribal, and territorial partners have all the resources that they need to get the job done. That is why today's hearing is so very important. While conducting oversight as ranking member of the task force, I have seen firsthand how this administration's actions are jeopardizing our security preparedness. Over the last year, the Trump administration has dismantled security cooperation at all levels of government, reduced counterterrorism personnel and resources, politicized FEMA funding and grants, and has openly refused to work with states run by Democratic governors and elected officials. Now, the Trump administration is choosing to withhold $625 million in security funding that Congress has already appropriated for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. This is money meant to help cities and states keep their games safe. These funds are just sitting there, collecting dust, waiting for FEMA approval and to be dispersed. States, host cities, and local law enforcement are begging FEMA to release this money to be able to prepare for and secure the World Cup Games. The time for action is short. This isn't competency, it's chaos. I urge my Republican colleagues to join me and my Democratic colleagues in calling for the administration to release these funds now. These communities must have the resources needed to ensure the events are safe for everyone. And as we go forward, we must keep in mind that it's not just stadiums and parking lots we must protect. It is fan festivals, entertainment districts, bars, and gathering spaces where countless people will be celebrating. Still, New Jersey will do whatever we can to provide safe and fun activities for the World Cup. And in doing so, we will ensure that all people and spaces are adequately protected. And I want to be clear, everyone everyone deserves to be free and safe at the upcoming games. Whether it's my constituents traveling from Patterson to East Rutherford or fans arriving from the other side of the world. All fans and players deserve to enjoy the games and know that our federal government is doing everything imaginable to make these events safe and secure. I have repeatedly stated concerns about Secretary Kristi Noem's out of control and unlawful enforcement actions. We all seen DHS violent immigration tactics, which were especially apparent during the recent outrageous operations in Minnesota. DHS personnel killed 2 American citizens and harmed countless others. So when Director Lyons refused to rule out conducting ICE enforcement at and around the World Cup event, when I asked him this very question, chaos ensued. Countries have issued travel advisories. Groups and businesses are raising alarms. Residents and fans are expressing fear for their safety, all while local officials report minimum communication by ICE about what exactly it plans to do. These tactics pose an unacceptable risk not just to Americans, but all foreign visitors seeking to enjoy the World Cup and other events. Make no mistake, security planning cannot succeed amid complete uncertainty, opaque planning, and unilateral decision-making. We need to explore these issues further and conduct real oversight of DHS out-of-control immigration enforcement policy to ensure the World Cup is safe for everyone. I have seen firsthand the amazing work that men and women at the state and local level are doing to make these the most secure games we ever seen. Fusion centers in New Jersey are working. Police departments in my districts are planning. Governor Sherrill's office are coordinating together. These are groups that are getting ready before the first whistle blows. The question is whether or not DHS will do the same. This committee has the responsibility to ensure that Homeland Security's policy is not driven by politics or retaliation, but by risk assessment, operational realities, and federal and state coordination. Because when millions gather in my district in New Jersey or Miami or Kansas City, the American people will not care about the interagency turf battles or grant paperwork backlog. Americans will expect that their government works together because security is a shared responsibility. But leadership starts at the top, and it is time for DHS to lead. I look forward, Mr. Chairman, to hear from our witnesses today and about how we can ensure that this agency can improve and do just that, because time is really running out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Other members of the committee are reminded that opening statements may be submitted for the record. And I'd like to formally introduce our witnesses. Mr. Mike Sina serves as president of the National Fusion Center Association and executive director of the Northern California High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area and the Northern California Regional Intelligence Center. He brings 28 years of law enforcement experience, including serving as the veteran investigator at the state and local level. Mr. Ray Martinez serves as the chief operating officer of the 2026 FIFA World Cup Miami Host Committee. He has 35 years of law enforcement experience, beginning his career in 1979 at the Miami Police Department, where he rose to the ranks from police officer to assistant chief of police. He later served as assistant chief and subsequently chief of police for the Miami Beach Police Department. A limited exception was made today due to unforeseen circumstances and inclement weather disrupting travel to allow Mr. Martinez to appear before this committee virtually. Without objection, I will enter into the record 2 letters, the first requesting this exception be made under the circumstances, and the second from the majority leader permitting this virtual testimony today. I appreciate. Yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, the gentlelady is recognized.
I'm reserving the right to object. Mr. Chairman, I will not object, but I will like to get your assurance that witnesses invited by the committee Democrats will be afforded the same opportunity to participate remotely in committee proceedings. On behalf of the ranking member Thompson, can I get your commitment to work with our side in the future when remote participation is required by our witnesses?
Yes, and I will, as I was saying, this was a very limited exception. It is in the rules, and it was a very difficult lift. I'm happy that the majority leader agreed. Took a lot of convincing, but because of the weather and the gentleman not being able to make it up here, we were granted this very late last night to allow him to do this. So I will work with you if same situation arises. You have my word. I will do what I can to get the same cooperation from the majority leader in the future. Again, but as I was told by the majority leader, this is a very limited circumstance due to the weather that and how DC doesn't really know how to handle a snowstorm, which we didn't get anyway. But I will do my best in the future. You have my commitment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, although it is 55
Yeah,
degrees
I know.
in Florida, I might add.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure Mr. Martinez just didn't want to come up and leave the beautiful weather that's down in Florida. We should have done a field hearing down there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And so I do appreciate the majority leader's willingness to grant this rare exception in order to ensure the committee can hear Mr. Martinez's valuable and time-sensitive testimony as the beginning of the World Cup games are only months away. Deputy Chief Joe Mabin serves as commander of the Patrol Bureau for Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. He previously served as interim chief for the police and deputy chief of the Investigations Bureau. He has progressed steadily through the ranks, serving as sergeant, captain, major, and ultimately deputy chief, with nearly half the department's personnel under his command. Mr. Travis Nelson serves as the deputy chief of staff and Homeland Security advisor for the Maryland office of the governor, officially assuming the role in June of 2025 after serving as acting director for over a year. He has over 20 years' experience in the public safety, emergency management, and law enforcement, including 19 years with the Maryland State Police. Thank all the witnesses for being here today. Pursuant to Committee Rule 8C, I ask that the witnesses please rise and raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you'll give before the Committee on Homeland Security of the United States House of Representatives will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Let the record reflect that the witnesses have all answered in the affirmative. Thank you very much, and please be seated. I now recognize Mr. Sena for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Poe, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Mike Sena, and I'm the president of the National Fusion Center Association, which represents the 80 designated fusion centers across America. Fusion centers are the backbone of the Homeland Security Information Sharing Enterprise. Every day, over 3,200 analysts and officers from every level of government work side by side with the private sector to identify threats, share intelligence, and coordinate operations. During major events, we collaborate with real-time crime centers, high-intensity drug trafficking areas, regional information sharing system watch centers, intelligence commanders with the major county sheriffs and major city chiefs, the U.S. Attorney's offices, the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Forces, the Homeland Security Task Forces, and the Center for Internet Security to ensure actionable intelligence reaches decision makers. 2 weeks ago, we wrapped up security operations at Super Bowl 60, which happened to be in my area of responsibility. I want to share a few examples of how we worked together and how things played out in real time and why it is so important for Congress to continue supporting us. In Sacramento, law enforcement mitigated a potential drone threat to the Super Bowl based on a tip from the Central California Intelligence Center days before the game. The night before the Super Bowl, CISA and DHS-INA briefed our team on the passenger rail sabotage threats that occurred the previous day at the Winter Olympics in Italy. Our analysts quickly identified the tactics and patterns, developed a threat bulletin that we sent out to first-line responders across the Bay Area before the crowds arrived the next morning. We also helped law enforcement and non-government organizations in their fight against human trafficking, contacting 73 adults and 10 juvenile human trafficking victims, including a 12-year-old child. Law enforcement arrested 29 suspected human traffickers, and our Fusion Center analysts played an important role supporting the Santa Clara County Human Trafficking Task Force. That level of collaboration was made possible by our use of technology that combined mapping, communication, and collaboration in a single platform. We were able to integrate tips, share online indicators of human trafficking, analyze field reports, and receive investigative requests from multiple agencies. While we're proud of the accomplishments, and I want to point out that we do have gaps that I believe Congress can help us address. We must address the ability to integrate the many threat reporting systems that remain fragmented today. Upcoming major events will test our ability to coordinate across jurisdictions under very compressed timelines. There are multiple systems which are not fully integrated with state and local platforms, creating delays and, more importantly, operational risk. We also must strengthen the field presence of DHS's Office of Intelligence Analysis. INA is the only element in the intelligence community required by law to share intelligence with state and local partners. We appreciate this committee for including the NFCA for discussions on how INA can be improved. Any reform must strengthen INA's presence at all 80 fusion centers while keeping a strong core component at headquarters. Regarding drones, we are grateful that Congress gave state and local law enforcement the legal authority to mitigate drone threats by passing the Safer Skies Act last year. Now, Congress must provide the resources to expand the counter-UAS training we are required to complete to use the authorities. Congress should also provide dedicated resources for first responders to integrate drones for our daily operations. Congress should continue to provide robust support for the State Homeland Security Grant Program, SHISHGAP, and the Urban Area Security Initiative, UASI. These programs support analysts, training, and technology that make information sharing and threat analysis possible at every level, every day. Without those two grants, fusion centers cannot fully contribute to the security of major events or the overall Homeland Security mission. Congress should also help resolve ongoing uncertainty around FEMA grant guidance and restrictions. The ability to carry out missions like ours at the Fusion Center should not be penalized for policy decisions we do not control. When eligibility requirements shift and when disbursements are delayed, it doesn't just affect local budgets. It derails national priority projects designed to prevent major threats. Cyber threats may present the greatest risks surrounding major events. A cyber attack of power, water, or transportation during the World Cup would create cascading failures that overwhelm response. Congress should require federal cyber partners to better integrate with and provide cyber analytical training to state and local partners. Congress should provide DHS the resources to accelerate security clearance processing for Fusion Center personnel. Clearance delays can lock out people from secure coordination spaces at the moment they are needed most. That is a gap in coverage we cannot afford. Finally, reliable public safety communications are an absolute requirement at major events. FirstNet has been an essential partner, and Congress should ensure it continues by reauthorizing the FirstNet authority this year. In closing, planning for threat analysis and information sharing around major events is not optional. It is mission critical. When information sharing is timely and properly resourced, threats can be mitigated before harm occurs. We appreciate this committee's leadership, and I appreciate your invitation to testify today.
Thank you, Mr. Sanum. I now recognize Mr. Martinez for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Thank you, Commissioner Garabino, Ranking Member Poe, and distinguished members of this committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify regarding public safety and security preparations for the FIFA World Cup. My name is Ray Martinez, and I serve as the Chief Operating Officer for the Miami Host Committee. As stated previously, I've served for 35 years in local law enforcement, my last 2.5 years as the Chief of Police of the Miami Beach Police Department. Upon my retirement from law enforcement, I moved into the event world and have worked on several large-scale international events, including music festivals, the college football playoffs in 2021, and just last month here in Miami. And I also served as the president and CEO of the Super Bowl host committee for the 2020 game, which was held in Miami. Working with me on the host committee are several law enforcement executives with similar, if not more impressive backgrounds. Those experiences and lessons learned inform the approach we are taking with World Cup planning. The FIFA World Cup 2026 will be the largest sporting event ever conducted globally. Miami is one of 16 host cities across 3 countries in North America hosting matches. We will host 7 matches, including a quarterfinal and the bronze medal final match. The Miami Host Committee is planning on producing a 23-day fan festival where we expect hundreds of thousands of international visitors. This presents a tremendous opportunity, but also a historic operational challenge. On behalf of the 11 U.S. World Cup committees, I want to thank this committee for providing the $625 million in security funding to the host cities. Those resources are critical to ensuring that host committees have capabilities necessary to execute safe and secure tournament across multiple weeks and venues. In Miami, our security framework is built on 3 pillars: unified command, integrated local, state, and federal partnership, and intelligence-driven operations. First, the unified command. Public safety operations in Miami are led by the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office under a unified command structure that integrates municipal police, fire rescue, emergency management, and state agencies across multiple jurisdictions. Second, integrated federal partnership with state and local agencies. The White House Task Force on the World Cup has played a central role in aligning federal agency support with local agencies and host committee planning. We are grateful to the White House Task Force and Executive Director Andrew Giuliani's efforts to support and partner with the FIFA World Cup host committees. Federal partners, including the FBI, Secret Service, FEMA, CISA, DHF, provide threat assessments, intelligence integration, cybersecurity protection, contingency planning. This coordination ensures access to national capabilities and support if threat conditions evolve. Third, intelligence-driven operations. The South Florida Fusion Center, working with the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force and federal intelligence partners, lead to proactive information sharing and threat monitoring. Both the Miami Stadium and Bayfront Park will operate with layered security perimeters, credential and entry screening, dedicated emergency access lanes, and joint operations center that provide real-time situational awareness and coordinated decision-making. One of the most significant emergency threats is unauthorized drone activity. Malicious or reckless drone operation presents risk ranging from surveillance to operational disruption. In coordination with federal partners, we will be implementing temporary flight restrictions, detection capabilities, and counter-UAS planning integrated into our overall security posture. We appreciate the congressional support, and particularly this committee, as well as President Trump's administration, for dedicated counter-UAS funding to support these efforts. The Department of Homeland Security has assigned elevated special event assessment ratings to the Miami matches, including a Tier 1 designation for the bronze medal final match. These designations reflect the scale and international visibility of the event and reinforce the importance of robust federal, state, and local coordination, which is well underway. Miami's preparedness reflects the ongoing coordinated efforts of all 11 U.S. host committees as we work each day to ensure a safe and secure and successful FIFA World Cup. Together, we are committed to demonstrating that no nation is better equipped to host and deliver a World Cup than the United States of America. I thank you for this opportunity to appear for you today, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martinez. I now recognize Deputy Chief Maben for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Poe, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today on information sharing and security collaboration ahead of major events. My name is Deputy Chief Joseph Maben, and I command the Patrol Bureau of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, which is a member of the Major City Chiefs Association. KCPD has a current staffing of over 1,100 sworn law enforcement officers, serving a city of more than 500,000 residents. In less than 16 weeks, Kansas City is projected to welcome more than 650,000 visitors during the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Kansas City has hosted major events in the past, including championship parades and iconic American sporting events such as the MLB All-Star Game and the NFL Draft. However, this event will require the largest coordinated deployment of mutual aid partners in our city's history. The 2026 FIFA World Cup is the single largest sporting event in the world. For the Kansas City metropolitan area, it represents both an extraordinary opportunity and a historic challenge. Kansas City is the smallest market among the 11 U.S. host cities, yet we will operate one of the largest overall footprints. We'll host 6 matches and 4 team base camps. In addition, Kansas City is planning a FIFA fan festival that will operate for 18 days throughout the tournament. Our tournament footprint spans 10 counties across 2 states, Missouri and Kansas. This bi-state effort requires a unified approach to emergency preparedness, response, and recovery. Crossing state lines adds complexity to communication and coordination, making seamless information sharing essential. The scope and visibility of this event require thoughtful, comprehensive planning. Safety and security remain our top priorities. Our goal is to deliver a safe, seamless, and welcoming experience for residents and visitors alike. As with any event of this scale, we are preparing for a range of potential public safety considerations, including unauthorized UAS, cyber disruptions, routine criminal activity, and increased demand on emergency and healthcare services. Central to our approach is timely, actionable information sharing with local, state, federal, and international partners. Since 2003, federal Homeland Security grants, particularly the Urban Area Security Initiative and State Homeland Security Grant Program, have allowed our region to build a mature, multidisciplinary preparedness framework. These investments helped establish and continue to sustain the Kansas City Regional Fusion Center, our primary intelligence hub. Through this federal support, we have built interoperable radio communications and strengthened intelligence sharing. We have enhanced specialized response capabilities, including hazmat, EOD, and tactical WMD response teams. We conduct thousands of hours of training each year through tabletop, functional, and full-scale exercises. All of this allows for real-time situational awareness and response across jurisdictions. These capabilities are the direct result of sustained federal-local partnerships, which are critical to our success. They are the foundations on which we are building our World Cup security posture. The challenges facing Kansas City are driven primarily by the scale and complexity of the tournament's footprint within the region. This is not a single venue or single-day event. It involves coordination of operations across multiple sites, jurisdictions, and several weeks. At the same time, we must operate with finite resources. Law enforcement personnel, specialized teams, and critical equipment are limited not only locally, but also nationally. Host cities will draw from the same pool of federal resources and specialized capabilities. We are grateful for this committee's work and support towards World Cup safety and security. The counter-UAS authorities under the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act provide critical resources to detect, track, and mitigate UAS threats. The FIFA World Cup Security Grant Program is necessary to fund the personnel, equipment, and operational needs required to deliver a safe event. We appreciate the continued support and partnership as we approach this historic tournament. Kansas City's investments, backed by federal Homeland Security grants and state and local commitments, enhance not only our regional's readiness, but our nation's preparedness for high-profile international events. Before the first whistle blows later this year, we want to ensure that information flows faster than threats, that partnerships are stronger than vulnerabilities, and that everyone experiences a safe and secure World Cup. Thank you for your continued partnership and support. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Chief. I now recognize Mr. Nelson for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Poe, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I serve as the Deputy Chief of Staff and Homeland Security Advisor for Wes Moore, Governor of Maryland. I oversee public safety and Homeland Security for Governor Moore with direct oversight of state departments, including the Department of Emergency Management, State Police, Department of Public Safety, Office of Homeland Security, and others representing first responders, emergency managers, and law enforcement professionals who work tirelessly to secure our communities. I am deeply grateful for and appreciate the essential work of our local, state, and federal public servants who continue to do their duties in a constantly evolving world. As all of you know, our nation is entering a time of major special events that we have not encountered in decades. From the celebrations of America 250 to the multi-city hosting of the 2026 FIFA World Cup and 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, While these events are proud moments for our nation, they can also strain local resources and come with an increased threat to our critical infrastructure. However, as the threat profile expands and the demand on our state and local resources increases, the financial support provided by the federal government to state and local partners is diminishing. The events of September 11, 2001 underscored the critical need for seamless collaboration between local, state, and federal agencies during major events. This realization drove the development of coordinated planning and preparedness strategies. With crucial federal financial assistance, standardized and interoperable plans, training, and equipment were adopted nationwide. The foundational work centered on the Incident Command System and the National Response Framework ensures that limited resources can be rapidly deployed and integrated across the country as personnel share a common operating framework. Advisory councils composed of subject matter experts from local jurisdictions have guided policies and procedures based on unique experiences. FEMA training centers allow first responders, hospital clinicians, and emergency managers to learn alongside their colleagues from across the country. This model empowers federal field office personnel from local offices to become familiar with their government counterparts, developing trusting relationships and collaborating. Maryland CCTV Situational Awareness Platform, MView, networks 399 federal, state, and local first responder agencies to over 40,000 cameras used to prepare for, prevent, and respond to major events or incidents. The program supports first responders in Virginia, D.C., Maryland, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. This includes over 950 federal first responders from 44 agencies. Many of the federal users of the platform are directly responsible for the security of federal assets. The MView platform is a proven tool and having been deployed for hundreds of major planned events, including Fleet Week, inauguration, and professional sporting competitions. It has also been vital during emergency response, such as the aircraft collision over the Potomac River and the Key Bridge collapse. The MView team is currently collaborating with organizers for the upcoming FIFA World Cup to integrate Delaware and New York into the platform. Furthermore, MView is scheduled for use as a force multiplier to assist in monitoring potential threats for tonight's State of the Union address. A large portion of this program is directly dependent upon UASC funding, but unfortunately the dramatic reduction in the NCR allocation has left the future of the program uncertain. The Maryland License Plate Reader Program is another initiative that directly supports criminal investigations, critical infrastructure security, and major event security throughout the region. The program is carefully managed to uphold citizen civil rights and civil liberties, exclusively focusing its support on criminal investigations. In recent years, this program has directly contributed to thousands of federal partner criminal investigations, including security operations. Following the sudden reduction of federal funds from the State Homeland Security Grant Program, Emergency Preparedness Grant, and the Urban Area Security Initiative has left several states, including Maryland, very vulnerable and faced with no option but to reduce personnel and capabilities. The cancellation of the Targeted Violence Terrorism Program on July 21st, 2025 is deeply concerning in regards to the rising threats against local officials. Between the federal fiscal year 2024 and 2025, we saw a reduction of over $1.3 million, and SHISGIB and UASC funding was cut by 44%, a total of $21 million. Then with the FY26 grant notification, the NCR was further decreased from $25.5 million to $4.4 million, a 90% reduction. The administration and Congress deserves praise for their efforts in tackling the threat posed by unmanned aerial systems. This response highlights the readiness of local and state officials to collaborate seamlessly with federal agencies to address this complex threat, which spans multiple jurisdictions. Maryland is eager to continue working with the National Security Council and others. Failure to address the funding shortfalls jeopardizes the safety of upcoming special events, regardless of their size and scope. Thank you for your leadership and commitment to our safety and our homeland. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Members will be recognized by order of seniority for their 5 minutes of questioning. I will be, well, maybe not today. I will be strictly keeping to the 5-minute rule, but if we go over, it's okay today. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questioning. Mr. Martinez, can you explain what goes into the planning? You're the head of the FIFA World Cup Miami Committee. Can you explain what goes into the planning for City of Miami?
Sure, thank you. Obviously, it's very intense and very detailed, obviously working collaboratively through the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office. As I indicated in my opening The Sheriff's Office is the lead law enforcement agency here at the local level. We have recently created a regional committee to cross jurisdictional lines. The multi-agency committee includes agency directors and representatives from across 4 counties, not only Miami-Dade County, but Broward County, Palm Beach County, and Monroe County to our south, bringing together stakeholders, public safety agencies to coordinate on the planning and coordination of the activities that are going to be taking place here in South Florida.
It's not just it's not just the games, though. There are other things that you are planning for, festivals and like watch parties, those things like that.
Yes, sir.
How much planning for security goes into that? How much? I mean, it takes quite a bit, correct?
It's immense. I mean, we've never handled anything like this, even though we are used to working on major events here in South Florida and Miami. But a 23-day fan festival in downtown Miami in a city park is something that has never been tried and never been done. But you know, we're expecting, you know, as I indicated, hundreds of thousands of people to come to South Florida to be part of the game, and understanding that, you know, not everybody's going to get into the stadium. So, you know, the Fan Fest is going to be the location where people are going to go to enjoy the matches, to see the matches, to be with their, you know, fellow countrymen, and to be able to celebrate, hopefully, their victories. And then on top of that, there will be regional watch parties across the 3 counties and really across the state of Florida. So, you know, that coordination is critical, and making sure that the information is shared and, you know, goes across jurisdictional lines.
So the money, the one big beautiful bill had, the reconciliation bill had $625 million in FEMA grants for measures. I think Miami was supposed to get around 70 million of that. I think that's what you all applied for. Has any of those funds been received yet?
No, sir, they have not.
Now, let me ask you a question. What happens when, I mean, I'm sure you put it into your budget, these FEMA grants. What happens if you don't get that money? So when is the drop dead date for you to start having to cancel things if you don't get that money in?
I mean, we're quickly approaching that. We're 107 days out from the tournament, but more importantly, we're about 70-something days out from starting to build the Fan Fest. These decisions have to be made. I mean, generously, I say within the next 30 days is the drop dead date. I know that the local agencies are very anxious, but without receiving this money, it could be catastrophic for our planning and coordination.
So if you don't get the FEMA grants in the next 30 days, the city of Miami is going to have to start canceling because you can't prepare for the security of those sites.
That is correct. We have to start making some really tough decisions, and it starts with our Fan Festival. Obviously, the matches up at the stadium, you know, will take place, but, you know, preparing for all of the impromptu events and, you know, watch parties that we're expecting to see will be in jeopardy as we continue.
I appreciate that answer. I'm running out of time, so I want to move over. Mr. Sano, we heard about special assessment ratings, SEER, and these events are getting SEER 1 or SEER 2 events. So extra resources are made available following those designations. We are currently experiencing a partial government shutdown, specifically at Homeland, the Department of Homeland. And I want to know, has the shutdown negatively affected information sharing networks that you deal with, you know, being with the fusion centers, head of fusion? Are you seeing a negative effect from the shutdown, or do you expect to see, if this lasts longer, a negative effect from the shutdown?
Currently, we're not seeing a major issue with the shutdown, but as time progresses, I definitely believe that we will. We rely heavily on our coordination with our partners in the Department of Homeland Security. If any of their resources aren't available, but one of the primary ones is, you know, that coordination with FEMA on the grant process. I mean, we've already dealing with many delays, which we don't know if and when we're going to get funding to continue operations. So the longer they're not around and not at their desks and not working on this process, the longer we don't know what's going to happen with the money we need to execute for these World Cup games.
Thank you very much. My time has expired. I now recognize ranking member for today, Ms. Poe, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you to all the witnesses for testifying today. Just want to make sure to mention once again that, we all understand that recent DHS enforcement has raised some serious alarms about its impact on public safety. Polls shows that most Americans believe that ICE actions have gone too far and makes us less safe. As we prepare for the to host the World Cup in my district, including the title game, we cannot have roaming packs of masked ICE agents harassing fans and players. At our last hearing, I directly asked Director Lyons about ICE plans at the World Cup. He confirmed ICE presence and refused to rule out immigration raids. His refusal raised grave concerns within my district and sent shockwaves across America and the world. Mr. Martinez, has DHS directly briefed you regarding the ICE plan at the World Cup matches in Miami, yes or no?
No.
Okay. Publicly stated, ICE publicly stated that it would have a key role at that World Cup. Are you concerned about that? Yes or no?
Not at the moment, no.
Mr. Martinez, are you aware that conversations between FIFA and DHS regarding ICE enforcement activity at the World Cup? Yes or no, sir?
Yes.
Has FIFA specifically asked DHS to suspend immigration enforcement actions at the official World Cup venue or events?
I am not aware of whether FIFA has made that request or not.
Okay. What's the point of giving President Trump a Peace Prize if we cannot keep his masked agents from terrorizing fans and players? It's absolutely absurd. Mr. Martinez, if a fan is detained by ICE at a Miami World Cup game or FIFA fan event, have you and DHS set a process to inform family members or legal counsel?
We have been in constant communication with our federal partners, and we have received no indication of immigration enforcement that will be taking place during the tournament. We are laser focused here at the Miami Host Committee in providing a safe and secure event. The only thing I can base on is in recent experience during the last year of our major events, which includes the College Football National Championship, Formula One, and the Club World Cup, which was held this past summer. And we did not experience any ICE enforcement activity as described.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Ms. Martinez, with only roughly 4 months to go, some cities still reports that they have not received this funding. I think the chairman just asked you that very question, and you've indicated that you have not received that. This is completely unacceptable and certainly close to kickoff. As you've pointed out, you have a drop date of time of 30 minutes. Officials in the Foxborough, Massachusetts, for example, are still waiting for $1 million of dollars. They say they cannot hold games if they do not receive the money. Mr. Martinez and Deputy Chief Mabin, have either of you received federal funding? And I know, Mr. Martinez, you indicated that you have not. Mr. Deputy Chief Mabin, can you tell me if you have received any information with regards to the actual funding that you are expected to receive? Have you received that or not?
No, ma'am, we have not.
What kind of delays or impact will that have if you do not get that? And similar to what the chairman asked, what is your drop dead time frame in order to do that? And I have like 34 seconds, so let's do real quick.
The drop dead date is immediate. We need commitments from mutual aid partners to help supplement our officers just because of the scope, scale, and duration of the games. And they need assurances that they will get reimbursed for overtime, for travel expenses, for lodging. So we need that information right now.
Is there any concern on the overtime of your personnel as a result of not having the wherewithal to do that?
Yes, ma'am. That is consideration for our budget. We definitely need an answer on that and to release the funds as soon as possible.
Thank you, Deputy Chief and Mr. Martinez. My time has run off. Thank you so very much. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the chairman of the task force and the former chairman of this committee, Mr. McCall from Texas, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me start out by saying I remember back when I chaired this committee, the Boston Marathon bombing, just really a sporting event that went really bad, and it was avoidable. It was preventable had federal, state, and local been sharing information. The FBI had information about Mr. Tamerlan's trip to Dagestan, where he radicalized, came back. They did not share that adequately with the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Specifically, the commissioner of Boston didn't have any of that information, even though he had 2 agents or 2 officers on the task force. We changed that by law, but it's all about connecting the dots. Mr. Senator, you're in charge of the Fusion Center, which sometimes comes under criticism. We formed the Fusion Centers to share, everybody talks about connecting the dots after 9/11. That's exactly what you're doing. What do you see as one of the biggest threats as you look at the environment out there and the threat matrix? What keeps you up at night the most?
It's a combination of things. The first thing in the back of my head always right now is the financial piece, because we do need the resources to get things going.
And I'll get to that in a minute, yeah.
It's
threat.
It's a threat, because if we don't have the right people in place
Correct.
to do the job, it won't get done. The other thing is the multimodal communication systems that we've got right now, the lack of getting that tip and lead, that piece of information. We do a lot of work educating our law enforcement, public safety, private sector partners on what we need as far as those tips and leads, those suspicious activity reports. But we have a lot of different places those go right now. Multiple federal systems, multiple private sector parties that take tips and leads. The problem is when you have so many silos, how do you connect them all? And then when it comes to game day and those operations ahead of time, how do you bring people together? And for example, during Super Bowl, we had 7 different systems up. And so that worries me tremendously, merging those technologies.
Well, the Super Bowl is a test.
It's a test for us because we're having FIFA's coming to town, so that was a test. And I can tell you that came up in the after action when people were talking, how do I watch 7 systems that I'm having to put data into 7 different platforms, my own people especially. But how do we merge those? And technology is there. It's policy and practice and training.
Well, the technology is there. Is a policy and practice prohibiting that?
It is. Everyone has their own silo. So
Okay, that's a real problem because we only have, it's going to be March, and they start in June. You got 100 games, over 100 games in 3 countries, Mexico, Canada, the United States. Let me ask you quickly, we were down in Mexico and got a joint training program with our military in both respective United States and Mexico, passed by their parliament. We saw the recent events in Mexico. They have drones. The violent uptick after the Jalisco cartel member was taken out. I know this is not in your purview, but you have to learn from those mistakes. How concerned are you about the gains in Mexico?
The big concern I've got, especially with drone activity, is that, for that example, I had a person that was planning on flying a drone right into the Super Bowl. And so that part of that is that we can and have countermeasures there. But there are so many other locations that we don't have people trained and equipment in place for countermeasures that they can go anywhere a crowd is at and immediately hit those targets and cause mass destruction. And we don't have the capability across the board to fight every drone threat.
That's a great segue to my next point, and that is under the Safer Skies Act the chairman introduced and my task force recommended. We got that passed in the National Defense Authorization. That gives the ability to share with state and locals the counter-drone authorities, which is critically important. I'm surprised we had any opposition to that. However, about $625 million, we passed a continuing resolution out of the House on DHS funding. That was already authorized and appropriated by Congress to go forward and be implemented under FEMA to security for the FIFA games. However, the Senate is playing politics with this and have decided to shut down the federal government. I would argue it's going to be on their head if they don't get this government back open and get this money directly to your fusion centers and these state and locals here. If something bad happens, it's going to be on their head, and I urge them to get this thing done and stop playing games, because at the games we're talking about, you're going to see another Boston bombing if we don't get that money out the door. I think all of you have testified how important that grant funding is. I know the chairman and ranking member here were both very vigilant about staying, on top of that. Final minute well, I'll talk to you off the record later about your drone mitigation at the Super Bowl, but I think that's really the threat here. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Correa, for 5
Thank you,
minutes.
Mr. Chairman. I want to welcome our witnesses today, being here, sharing your intel. Little history, 911. We had silos, information in one hand, information in the other hand. If it could have been shared, maybe 911 could have been prevented. And that's why Homeland Security was created, sharing information. Mr. Maben, you talk about the fact that FIFA will be the single largest sporting event in the world. That's impressive, and that's also a big target. And Mr. Senna, you mentioned that shared info is the backbone of intel. A few months ago, we had my good Sheriff Don Barnes from Orange County here, 8 months ago, and he was talking about the withholding of billions of dollars of FEMA funding for fusion centers. And he said, and I quote him, "Stepping back from our posture in our fusion centers." I think Sheriff Barnes is trying to say that not getting that FEMA funding is going to hurt your posture defending our citizens, preventing a major catastrophe. And God knows we have a lot of frenemies out there right now. So your fusion center in Northern California is 100% funded through FEMA preparedness grants. How long has it been since you've gotten these grants?
Actually, we've been receiving these grants for our center since 2004.
And lately?
Well, we have not gotten our last 2025 allocation, so we are going to be short this year if it doesn't show up.
So right now you're beginning to feel the challenges of not being properly funded in order to defend our citizenry with this FIFA coming up and the Olympics coming up and so on and so forth.
Absolutely, sir. Without the personnel to do the analysis, without the threat liaison officers to do the outreach and training on suspicious activity report, without the technology in place. And some of the technology we have built is actually supporting all of FIFA for the entire nation. So without those resources and capabilities, we will be blinded to the threats.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for being here today, and I'm in concurrence with my colleagues. We've got to stop playing politics with this stuff, with these funds that are so critical to defending our country. We had a lesson, 911. I don't want to relive that lesson. And Sheriff Don Barnes, who I think you know very well, he's got to protect Disneyland, and we're a very high target in people's lists. We have the Anaheim Angels, the Anaheim Ducks, a lot of things going on in Southern California. And I guess I'm going to ask you to help us get the message out. In Washington, there's a lot of things that we get caught up with that are supposed to be important. But heaven forbid we have another 911 coming at us. It'll change us again in ways we can't even imagine. So I would ask you to continue to come up here and talk to my colleagues and myself, both sides of the aisle, remind people how important it is to protect our citizens through proper funding. And hopefully we get that FEMA funding up and running so that you can do your job. Fusion centers, love what you do out there. Very impressive, good intel, and God knows there's a lot of information out there you got to sift through to get to the bottom. So thank you very much, and I just wanted to, again, invite you to come back and let us know what is important at the end of the day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Jimenez, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as I'm sitting here listening to some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle complaining about ICE enforcement, and apparently ICE enforcement is the issue that has caused us to shut down DHS. The problem is that ICE is funded like through 2027. So what it is that they're all complaining about and shutting the government down, it doesn't affect the thing that they're complaining about. So this is all political theater. And unfortunately, you're going to be paying the price because the people that are supposed to be processing the grants are non-essential. Therefore, they're not working. And so those folks that you're relying on to get the money for the FEMA grants, it's not coming until the government reopens. And so I hope that that doesn't mean that there's going to be some kind of tragedy happening in the United States because the government and DHS itself is closed. Now, the facts are there are some jurisdictions that are going to be able to absorb this a little bit better than others. I know that you're all going to do what you have to do in order to protect the public. Regardless if we give you the money. We will give you the money. Eventually, you will get it, okay? The question is your capacity to float, that until you finally get the money, because we're notorious here for saying we're going to give you stuff and we won't give it to you for about 5 years, okay? So just think about that. Chief Martinez, good to see you. I mean, I know you're in Miami. You're a smart guy, just stayed there. My main concern, a big concern I have is drones and the usage of drones and as a potential terrorist threat. Do you feel that you have the authorities needed in order to handle that threat now?
Well, certainly with the changes that have been made, we feel more confident. Local representatives from the major agencies, including Miami-Dade Sheriff, City of Miami Police, Broward County, Florida Highway Patrol, have either attended or are scheduled to attend the required training. So we feel confident that we will be able to deploy teams to these critical sites, both at the stadium and the Fan Fest. The issue is being able to cover other areas that may be popping up, impromptu celebrations, watch parties that could hold, 500, 1,000, 2,000 people across the region. So, we don't have the resource to cover every spot, but we do feel confident that we will have the resources and the technology to cover the main ones, which are the stadium and the Fan Fest.
Do you feel that you have the technology that will allow you to actively incapacitate any drone that may be a threat to to the population?
Well, I know the agencies are in the process of obtaining and procuring those resources and those technologies. They have not been received yet, so we're hopeful. Obviously, we're piggybacking on the federal government to be able to source those technologies. So, I guess, yes, we do feel confident if everything comes to fruition, and we feel that we're moving in the right direction to support that.
Will you require federal resources for that? Are they going to be the only ones that are that have the authority to do something about that, or has that authority been delegated also down to the local law enforcement agencies?
Some of it has been delegated down to a limited scope, and that's what the required training is for. But we also will be depending on our federal partners to assist us in those matters, especially at the stadium.
Are you comfortable with that, or would you feel more comfortable in also getting additional authority to be able to handle the situation as you see fit?
I mean, certainly having additional authority, would be beneficial, no question. Understanding the difficulty in doing that, we're thankful for what we have, but certainly we would welcome, increased authority, especially, as it relates to these international type of games and matches where Obviously the crowd size and the target and the threat, is significant.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Carter, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for joining us today. I proudly represent New Orleans, the greatest city in the world to host major events like last year's Super Bowl. The allure of the city means we're responsible for protecting countless mass gatherings throughout the year. Mardi Gras, Jazz Fest, Essence Fest, the Sugar Bowl, Taylor Swift concerts, the list goes on and on. The terrorist attack last year on the early hours of New Year's Day on Bourbon Street served as a stark reminder of how terrorist tactics are evolving and the importance of enhanced coordination between our federal, state, and local security agencies during these events. However, the administration has repeatedly obstructed FEMA, politicizing the agency and delaying disaster preparedness and response. Last week, it reportedly told FEMA to halt all travel, seemingly to create fallouts from DHS's funding lapse, despite FEMA's testimony to Congress that it will continue disaster response using funds unaffected by the shutdown. The politicization of FEMA makes America less secure every day, especially while preparing for large-scale events when communities are most vulnerable to security threats. Mr. Nelson, Maryland is no stranger to the Trump administration's politicization of disaster aid. When historic flooding hit Western Maryland in 2025, did Maryland meet the criteria for receiving federal assistance? And do you feel that President Trump made an objective, non-political decision when he rejected Governor Moore's request for assistance?
Well, thank you for that question. And yes, we did meet the threshold. We are currently at $34 million in damage for the $13 million minimum, and was really not given any true reason for why it was denied.
For each of our other speakers, would you agree that the disbursement of emergency funds should not, underscore not, be decided by politics or party?
For me, sir,
Just yes or no?
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Has there been, or could there have been in the future, a fiscal impact on Maryland's taxpayers or local government if DHS continues to delay these reimbursements?
Yes, absolutely.
We've witnessed an increase in attacks on religious institutions recently, including an arsonist who set fire of a synagogue in Ranking Member Thompson's district in Mississippi. Despite this heightened threat, environment, DHS has not released nearly $300 million in nonprofit security grants that Congress appropriated almost a year ago. Mr. Nelson, are you concerned that delays in dispersing funding for nonprofit security grant programs could further jeopardize the security of houses of worship in Maryland?
Yes, I am.
Can you expound on that?
Absolutely. So the instability, these are funds that are directly distributed to places of worship. So it's difficult for them to be able to budget and to balance in the security needs. And if we can't commit to them the funding that is going to be passed down to them, they have to make difficult decisions on what they are going to invest in with their places of worship, ultimately opening up to vulnerabilities.
Thank you. And let the record reflect, Mr. Chairman, that all of the witnesses said affirmatively that the disbursement of funds for natural disasters that happen not by party, not by race, not by socioeconomic standards, but by Mother Nature, by acts of perhaps the issues of mankind with climate change should not be withheld for a political party, political purpose, political theater. They should be given according to meeting the minimal thresholds of a natural disaster or an emergency declaration, which Maryland did. And we're hopeful that we will not see further cases where resources are withheld because it wasn't my party, wasn't my president, not my problem. We're Americans. Natural disaster and FEMA and the resources should be given as needed regardless of any politics. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Strong, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Thompson. As we prepare to host the FIFA World Cup, Olympics, America 250, and even college sporting events, we face an unprecedented mix of security challenge. It is past time to unleash counter-UAS to defend America and its citizens from drone attacks. Much of that technology is developed in my district. Our ability to protect fans, athletes, and host communities will depend on how well we are prepared, trained, and share information and respond under pressure. I'm proud to represent Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama, where the FBI recently opened the National Counter Unmanned Aircraft Systems Training Center, America's premier hub for training law enforcement and security professionals to counter the threat posed by drones, all under one roof. Deputy Chief Mabin, the threat posed by rogue unmanned aircraft systems to stadiums and fan venues may represent one of the greatest security challenges we face in hosting these large-scale events. Congress recently extended authorities to state and local law enforcement to mitigate these drone threats. How do you anticipate these expanded authorities will help your officers secure World Cup sites, stadiums, and fan festivals, which is, you think about the World Cup itself, it's equivalent to 7 Super Bowls at the same time?
Absolutely. It's a question of scale. We will get federal support, counter-UAS support, but it's limited. And by expanding these authorities to local police departments, we're able to cover down on the other areas. It's more than just the stadium. It's also the FIFA Fan Festival areas. And so once we get the training and procure the resources, then we'll be able to be better positioned to counter any kind of UAS threats.
Thank you. Has anyone from your department coordinated with or received training through the FBI's Counter-UAS Training Center at Redstone Arsenal?
Yes, sir. We have individuals scheduled to go down for the training right now.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez, building on that point, how have organized committees been working with federal, state, and local partners to ensure strong counter-UAS mitigation procedures are in place?
So we've been making sure, obviously, that the responsible agencies, as I mentioned earlier, from the Miami-Dade Sheriffs, the City of Miami Police Department, Broward County Sheriffs, and across the state from the Florida Highway Patrol, are able to receive that training. And as I indicated, many have already received it, and those that have not are scheduled to receive it in the next month or two. So working with our federal partners, to ensure that those trainings are provided for those jurisdictions is critical. We're continuing to work, obviously, with our federal partners in communicating, what our overall drone threat plan will be, and, collaborating with them on the deployment of these resources.
Do you see any gaps in preparedness as we approach summer?
Well, the gaps for us is really in the funding. Has been highlighted, it is absolutely critical to be able to get this funding. As Congressman Jimenez indicated, the agencies will step up and provide, the resources that are needed. But our fear is that decisions will be made on budget instead of threat assessment, especially as we get closer and the actual scale of it starts to show itself. So that's why we feel is absolutely essential to be able to get that money released so the agencies have the comfort in knowing that they will be reimbursed.
Thank you. Switching gears, with over 36 years experience as an emergency medical technician and 40 years as a firefighter, I take emergency response and public safety extremely serious. When we host events of this scale, it's critical that fire and EMS officials are not only present, but fully trained, equipped, and integrated into security planning. Mr. Martinez, what are the greatest areas of need for fire and EMS officials ahead of these games, and how are you ensuring they are fully prepared to respond if the unthinkable occurs?
Absolutely. We've been working very closely with the major fire and emergency management agencies here, including the Miami-Dade Fire Department and the Miami-Dade Department of Emergency Management. We have held already several large-scale, full-scale exercises, as well as numerous tabletop exercises to develop responses and capabilities and understanding of what those capabilities are for all of the agencies involved. The Miami-Dade Fire Department is taking the lead in coordinating with local municipal fire departments, including City of Miami, Miami Beach, Coral Gables, for mutual aid and as well as coverage in their jurisdictions. So we feel we have a very strong, assessment of our capabilities as well as training, ongoing training that has been taking place over the last year and a half, and it will continue on leading up to the games themselves.
I want to thank all of our witnesses. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and I recognize the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Thompson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I welcome all our witnesses today. According to several states and stakeholders, the Trump administration continues to withhold over $1.2 billion in FEMA counterterrorism funding that should have been provided to communities almost 6 months ago for programs such as Urban Area Security Initiative and Nonprofit Security Grant Program. The Trump administration is even challenging court orders that would make this funding available immediately to first responders, nonprofits, and other local partners. In many communities, this lack of funding is jeopardizing security preparations for upcoming large events, such as the FIFA World Cup, America 250 celebrations, and 2028 Olympic Games. And as my colleague, Mr. Carter mentioned, we had a synagogue bombed in my district recently, and the money that identified the culprit was the nonprofit security grant program that the cameras caught him, and subsequently he's admitted to the cause. So if this money is not available or delayed, as it currently is, Ms. Nelson, can you discuss those impacts on Maryland's preparedness when DHS delays and fight court orders to provide necessary counterterrorism funding going to nonprofits, first responders, and other local partners?
Thank you, Ranking Member Thompson. So in response to that, we recognize that it's critical, and in fact, the state was deeply concerned that the federal government would not provide the funds and actually found a way to supplement some state funding because of their increased concern around this risk area. So in that sense, we are deeply concerned about the sustainability of the nonprofit security grant and distributing those funds efficiently down to the places of worship and other eligible applicants to better protect those vulnerable populations.
So your testimony is that those programs are not only essential, but pretty much required if we're going to protect houses of worship and other places like that.
Yes, sir, as much as Governor Moore has dedicated state funding to back up that fact.
Well, another comment that Mr. Chairman, we're coming in contact with is right now the Secretary is signing each grant award of $100,000 or more. Chief Martinez, do you, right now, are you applying for monies in excess of $100,000?
Yes, sir.
Would a delay in the execution of those contracts create a problem for your agency?
Yes, sir, they would. It could be catastrophic for us.
Mr. Mabin,
Yes, sir.
would that be a problem for you too?
Yes, it would, sir.
Well, and as I think a lot of us have already indicated, that's for the third largest government agency to get down to the 100,000 contract signing. That that slows down the process. And Mr. Chairman, I look forward to us trying to work with the secretary to unblock the backlog of contracts on her desk, because that creates a problem. Now, the other question, Mr. Nelson, UWASI is a good program, and do you see any dangers in not funding those UWASI cities in a timely manner?
Absolutely. To the point that the response today for the State of the Union address, some of those capabilities will be diminished in future years if we don't receive the funding.
Yeah, and that's for the big cities. You know, it's not for the little folk. But we created a special program for those large areas because they need the assistance. And if, for whatever reason, those funds are not made available, then those communities become susceptible to potentially any kind of danger. So I look forward to trying to unblock the logjam and get the monies to the communities where they need it. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Crane, for 5 minutes of question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this committee. Thank you to our witnesses for showing up today. You know, it's just unbelievable to me that we sit here in this hearing today, which is about security and intelligence sharing for these large events coming up in the United States of America, like the FIFA World Cup, the Olympics, etc. And my Democrat colleagues continue to blast the Trump administration for not funding the Department of Homeland Security and all of our efforts that are designed to keep these people, our citizens, foreign travelers, and these events safe from attack. And yet not one single one of them voted for the Department of Homeland Security appropriations bill. People ask me all the time, is Washington, D.C. as bad as we think it is? This committee hearing right here is a perfect example of how bad it really is. They'll sit here and talk about the Trump administration and how they're not distributing funds for these events and to keep our communities safe, and yet not one of them voted for the Department of Homeland Security appropriations. That covers the Coast Guard, it covers CISA, cybersecurity, it covers ICE, Department of Homeland Security, all of it. And they didn't vote for any of it. Mr. Cena, what are your thoughts on that?
From my perspective, what we're able to do and capable of doing right now has been built up over 20 plus years. And we're still not quite where we need to be as far as the information sharing and overcoming the silos. I think on the funding piece
No, that's not what I asked you, sir, with all due respect.
Yes, sir.
And I know, I get it. You're trying to be a nice guy in here. I asked you, when you hear all these comments from people that voted against funding the Department of Homeland Security, is there a part of you that's like, really? This is political theater. That's what it really is.
I do think that the impasse that we have right now with the grant funding and with the support of the department overall, I can tell you that on a daily basis, we work with partners from all of the DHS components. And without their resources in place, we can't be successful. And so without them being fully open and operational, it causes problems for us in fighting the threats, from transnational organized crime to human trafficking to counterterrorism. They need the resources as much as possible to get, and that includes DHS Office of Intelligence Analysis. Without their backbone supporting us, that's a problem.
How about TSA, right?
Huge.
The folks that, work in airports every day to make sure that folks coming into these events are going to be able to get here and attend these events. Is that open right now? Is that funded?
That's a problem, and especially the support that we get from the Federal Air Marshal Services on counter-drone activities and detection. I mean, they are great partners in this. So there's a lot of components with the DHS that the longer that they don't have funding, the longer we have huge gaps that we will see.
I want to read some quotes that I heard just in this hearing today from some of our Democrat members. This admin has jeopardized homeland security efforts. The time for action is short. Release these funds now. Everyone deserves to be safe and free at these events. Security planning cannot take place during insecurity. We're Americans. Funding should be given regardless of politics. Did you guys hear those? I just want to make the point again. If you're a Democrat on this dais and you voted to fund the Department of Homeland Security, please raise your hand. That's what I thought. And so, it's just too hard to sit here and listen. And they're hoping that nobody calls them out on their gaslighting. They're hoping that nobody does and that we all just play nice in here. I'm not going to do it. That's not why my constituents sent me to Washington, D.C. Chief Mabin, if you guys don't get the funding that you need, how's it going to impact Americans that, not just in their regular lives, but if they're trying to go to the FIFA World Cup?
Specifically with FIFA, our security plans rely on mutual aid partners, and they need assurances that they will be refunded or be able to seek overtime and travel funds, and so that would negatively impact our security posture.
Mr. Cena, I do want to hear more about this drone attempt with the NFL. Did that drone have a payload?
It was intended to have something, but it turned out to be flyers, but it could have been anything attached to it.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the ranking member as well. And I say sincerely that I'm most appreciative for this hearing. I did not vote to support many of the things that I find onerous within Homeland Security. But that's a discussion that I'll be willing to debate at a future time with a member who's appropriately rated to debate. Now, moving on to today's hearing. I don't have any gotcha questions. I really want to find out what we're doing in the area of human trafficking. I want to find out because my county, Harris County, is one of the leading counties in the country when it comes to human trafficking. I'm interested in knowing what is our approach, how will we deal with recovery and response, rehabilitation to a certain extent, how will we deal with prevention? These are some serious questions that we need to answer because with human trafficking being more than $200 billion in terms of an enterprise globally, more than $200 billion, we've got to concern ourselves about the young ladies, the children who are going to be trafficked at an event such as what we will have in Houston, Texas. And I'm concerned about the entire country, but I just want to make sure that we protect people who are going to be at this event. Chief, if I may ask you, Deputy Chief, what are your thoughts in terms of where we are with human trafficking, in terms of preparedness to deal with it, because we know that it will occur, and it will occur in a huge, massive way in Houston, Texas, if we're not careful. So how do we deal with it?
I'm glad you raised that issue, a very important issue. Major sporting events around the world are known to have human trafficking occur when they happen. And so we're educating our frontline officers and teaching them to recognize the signs of human trafficking. We're partnered with the FBI on different task forces that target human traffickers and internet crimes against children crimes. We're also reaching out to our private partners, hotels, to let them know what the signs are, and the airport. And we're really doing a broad education campaign so that people can report these signs and we can respond appropriately. So I think we are positioned well to combat human trafficking, and we know it is a major concern. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate you saying it's a major concern and where you are positioned. But it's my understanding that you need money to facilitate and to activate the necessary people power to make the difference. Mr. Sina, is that correct?
That's correct, sir. Without the resources, I mean, we have analysts that are working every day to fight this issue. And I have to compliment, Mike McDaniel, the HIDTA director for Houston, who's been at the forefront of this and this human trafficking effort. But one of the things that we do is bringing together technology, bringing together our Microsoft Teams and Esri platform, which we use successfully at the Super Bowl. And thanks to the task force there, led by our team from Santa Clara County, we were able to bring together over 60 agencies and identify.
Let me
83
intercede
victims.
just a moment and ask this question, please. We're less than 4 months away from this activity actually being initiated. So with this limited amount of time, at some point you can receive dollars and you cannot use them efficaciously because time is not on your side. Do you not need to have the funds now?
We needed them 6 months ago, actually, but we do need them now. We've got, and the other part of this is that there are gaps in this, as you mentioned earlier. Once we contact victims, getting them the support that they need. It's horrendous, the situation we're in right now with no place to put people, no housing, not having child protective services folks available and others to help out with the situation.
You said child protective services. Children, we're talking about children. As young as what, sir?
And the Super Bowl, 12 years old.
12 years old, being trafficked.
Being trafficked.
Well, and you can prevent much of this if you have the funds that you need for recovery and response, which means to help them through the trauma that they're suffering. This is a part of it, is it not?
Absolutely, sir. Without those resources, we can't get the victims the help, and they can get pulled back into being trafficked again.
Thank you for the time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes myself for 5 minutes. Thank you all for being here. We have a lot of activities that are going to be ongoing in the next 2 to 3 years. America's 250th birthday, the World Cup, the Olympics, not to mention the normal pace that we keep up with just normal events around the country. So I'll start by saying thank you. The work that you do is incredibly important. I have visited several fusion centers, and Mr. Singh, I appreciate just how nuanced it is. And agree with my colleague, Mr. Crane, that if this is not bipartisan, if we can't move in a bipartisan way to fund the security of our homeland, then what are we doing? And let's get to some of those questions about just how important it is. So given the activity that we have seen from the cartels recently that have happened in Mexico in the last 3 to 4 days, what kind of threat are we looking at the possibility? Is this something that you're concerned about? Mr. Sena, I'll ask you, what can the fusion centers be doing? What are they doing to mitigate that threat?
Transnational organized crime groups out there are a tremendous threat to our country. Fusion centers and the HIDTAs and our risk partners have worked for a long time to fight those threats. But every day we see this increase in rhetoric, and not only that, now we see violence south of our border. They are not that far away to cause problems here. And our country is a location where they raise funds, and we are the source of their income. But we don't know how they will react to whatever threat they perceive from anyone, whether it be Mexico or the United States, and what harm they may cause. I mean, right now with fentanyl trafficking, and I think we've discussed this, privately, is that I had over and still have over 500 Hondurans that have been operating in our region. At one point, all selling dope in a square mile area in San Francisco. We have fought back on that, thanks to the support of the city and county of San Francisco, the mayor's office, the district attorney, the police chief, and the sheriff, as well as the United States Attorney's Office and our DAs from around the region and sheriffs and other chiefs of police. We are going to be receiving an award for the HIDTA program for our San Francisco Metro Task Force because we have pushed back on that. The city is a much cleaner place. It's a much safer place. People are not dying in the numbers and droves that they were in that city before. But we cannot turn our backs on these groups because they continue to be a major threat. And when we talk about special events, those folks are there to sell fentanyl, to sell dangerous drugs, and to sell human beings. And there's no reason they can't turn to violence while they're there, depending on what the geopolitical environment is at the time.
Well, Well, thank you for that. Chief Maven, thank you for being here. From the local and state level, how important is it to have qualified INA personnel for deployed to the fusion centers? What kind of information do you need? How do you work together? Give us a sense of what we just heard mitigating these threats.
Thank you. It's absolutely important to have them work in the Fusion Center. We can't just show up one day in the middle of a critical incident and start working together. So we have to have them embedded in the Fusion Center real time for months in advance, years in advance, to establish those relationships. They act as a critical bridge between other cities, between the IC community and local law enforcement to be able to push out intelligent products and safely secure these events. So it is critical.
Let's talk about drones. That was a previous discussion. Just looking at the rapid expansion, I know there's many drone incursions that happen on the southwest border. We saw one in El Paso recently, or I think alleged that it was a drone activity. What can we be doing? How do the fusion centers react? And what is the threat that we're worried about mitigating at the major events in the next year, Mr. Sina?
For me, it's having state and local partners, not just with the authorities, but the tools and resources to prevent the threat. Without those, we're lost. The other piece of this is that the ability for drones to carry a payload, even if it's a small payload, can cause panic. If it's a white powder dropped, well, who knows what that is? Stampede alone will injure people. Even worse if it's some type of poison that could harm people, like fentanyl. There are a lot of threats out there, but we need the resources, early detection, and that integration, like we see in Las Vegas, where we have Federal Air Marshal Service personnel in the Fusion Center. We need the people in the center. That's the whole purpose of a Fusion Center, is to bring people together. So without those federal, state, and local resources in the same place at the same time, looking for the same threats, we're going to miss things.
Thank you. My time has expired. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Walkinshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for convening today's hearing, and to our witnesses for joining us. I represent Fairfax County, a proud part of the National Capital Region, largest jurisdiction in the National Capital Region. As Mr. Nelson knows, our region is designated as a high-threat, high-density area, which permits us, and I know this has been discussed by the ranking member and others, to receive Urban Area Security Initiative grant funding, which enhances our regional preparedness, strengthens public safety, helps fund and refund terrorist response training, camera networks, emergency alert systems, and coordination tools, all of the tools that keep our national capital region and our nation's capital safe. But as the threat levels remain very high for our region as we prepare for major events, America 250, the World Cup, the administration moved last year to slash $40 million in Homeland Security funding from our region, cutting preparedness grant funding by 90%. And I know there's been some conversations around the DHS funding situation and the shutdown at DHS right now, which we need to work together to resolve. But it's important to note that the administration has been shutting down elements of DHS throughout this term, and this grant program is one of them. State and local entities in Virginia and across our region have served as reliable partners in emergency response efforts. We send law enforcement and first responders to help recovery efforts after the tragic and deadly collision near National Airport. I was just at an event with the families of those who lost their lives in that tragic collision. Fairfax County police officers were here at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, working to repel the insurrectionists. But these drastic cuts to grants would erode Fairfax County's, and I think other jurisdictions in our region, overall emergency preparedness and response capabilities. And national special security events occur frequently in our region. It's not a rare thing. It's a weekly thing. It would also hinder our ability to conduct training and obtain new equipment that might no longer be able to be paid for by local funding and reimbursed. It's defunding the police is what it is when the administration cuts these grant programs that help to fund local law enforcement. It jeopardizes safety of Americans in our region and all across the country. And I think Virginians and all residents of our region deserve clear answers as to why the administration believes they don't need the resources to protect against terrorist threats and other incidents. I want to ask Mr. Nelson, in the past year, in your view, has the threat level to our region, the National Capital Region, increased or decreased, the overall threat level?
Increased also in regards to at the local and state level. So the federal threat has always been high here. However, we're seeing an increase in threats at the state and local level that is also increasing now, which is making it even more complex.
Okay. And can you just speak specifically how these grant cuts, the cuts to these Homeland Security grants, UASI and others, would hinder DC, Maryland, and Virginia state and local law enforcement from working collaboratively to respond to incidents? And, there's a lot of conversation nationally right now about the need for federal law enforcement and local law enforcement to cooperate and partner. How do these cuts, or would these cuts, make that cooperation more difficult?
It would make it much more difficult. Following the Paris attacks in 2015, I actually chaired the National Capital Region Complex Coordinated Attack Working Group, where we built systems, information sharing platforms, and resource management programs to address the complex threats in this region. Those programs will likely erode and be demobilized as a result of the decrease in funding.
And maybe specifically, how would it or will it hinder our ability to prepare for America 250, 4th of July celebrations, big upcoming events like that?
In addition to breaking down the products such as the CCTV program or other types of information sharing platforms, it also, there's other existing programs outside the grant program, such as the information sharing platform that was run by DHS that has also been sunsetted, that we had to pick up as a state and begin running for the nation to try to ensure that that information flow still occurs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Van Epps, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing, and to our witnesses for joining us. And thank you for your efforts to keep Americans safe. Like many Americans, I'm excited for the America 250 celebrations and the World Cup matches. I also recognize the huge security concerns that these events bring with them, and our law enforcement's significant work to ensure the United States hosts the most successful and peaceful events in the world. Among them, DHS INA is specifically and uniquely equipped to manage threat response during national special security events. But the threats are always changing. Modern UAS and generative AI means nearly anyone, anywhere can disrupt these events with serious consequences, and we must ensure that never happens. Sticking with the theme of interagency coordination and information sharing, Mr. Sina, what real-time intelligence sharing mechanisms are there to ensure all threats are reported accurately during these events? And I know you talked about the 7 systems and some of the synchronization challenges, but if you'd care to expound upon any of that.
No, definitely. At the classified level, we have the Homeland Security Data Network, HSDN, which fusion centers have within their operations to connect with DHS intel and what's available within that platform. But on the FBI side, you also have their own separate high-side systems as well, and JWICS and military side technologies. We also have the Homeland Security Information Network, which has a SharePoint site, which is Microsoft-based technology, along with an Adobe Connect system, and those two systems don't actually talk to each other. We also have within our partners at the FBI, within their CJIS division, they also manage the LEAP, Law Enforcement Portal Virtual Command Center, VCC. We also have a number of partners at the state and local level that are using everything from Microsoft to Slack to Signal to communicate. We also have local emergency operations channels and various EOC type communication areas. And the problem we have with much of these technologies is that none of them connect to each other. Many of them have similar tools and resources, but ultimately, because folks don't want to pick a favorite and everyone has their own, it's hard for people to communicate. And that's why a lot of work's been done over the last 4 years to do that direct integration between Microsoft Teams and Esri, because most of government has Microsoft and most of government has Esri technology. So that was what really helped us out tremendously on our human trafficking effort during Super Bowl. But ultimately, we've got to figure out bridges between technology. Otherwise, they fall into pockets. And as far as the reporting of threats, we have the National Threat Operations Center, the NTOC, which is at CJIS Division in West Virginia. They handle about 1.3 to 1.6 million tips and leads per year. And I have to tell you, that's overwhelming. We also have various hotlines for human trafficking. So those go into those pots of information. But the ultimate issue we have is with all these multiple pots of tips and leads information, they all aren't consolidated. And so we don't know what we're missing until bad things happen. And even during the Super Bowl, there was a belief that we were missing some tips and leads from one source party. And one of our partners actually called in a tip to see if somebody would send us the tip, and it never came in. And so those are the types of issues we have, trying to make sure that there is a constant flow of communication. Fusion centers were designed to help facilitate that and to help move the data. But as technology has not progressed with the issues we have today, we have these silos of excellence that don't connect to anybody.
So building off of that, could you, and maybe this is for Mr. Martinez as well, but could you walk us through what the intelligence sharing process would look like if there was an active threat at one of the World Cup events? And what are the crucial communicating tools and the potential gaps there as well?
Absolutely. And unfortunately, each of those systems I mentioned would be one of those things that analysts probably have to enter data into. But the real thing is people in the room talking to each other. So what we've done and built in the past, in which every location will have, is a regional collaboration, coordination, and communication centers. There will be ops centers. But I can tell you that we had about 6 operation centers just during the Super Bowl. So I can only imagine that there'll be many more based on how spread out the FIFA operations are to bring information together. But if there's a critical threat, it's going to be communication between people in the room, and then the ability to bring people in, most oftentimes in that Microsoft Teams environment, to host a call very quickly to say, this is the threat. And that's what I've done in the past in my own center. If something escalates to a point where we've got to get general information out, people are not always tied to their email. They're not always tied to even their text messages. But if you get the alert out and bring people together physically and virtually, brief them on the threat as quickly as possible. The only problem comes in if the threat is classified, and then trying to get the classification down. That's where clearances become important for, especially our state and locals. And we have had that, that effort to try to get people as many clearances as possible to bring them into a room and tell them this is the threat. But not everyone has remote communications at classified level. So there are urgencies that we have to get information out. And I can tell you years ago, we had that same problem in San Francisco, and ultimately they built a room that we could hold 300 people in to get them briefed. That's a rarity. Not many cities, locations have a place that is reasonable to get to in classified space to get briefed up on urgent threats. But ultimately, it's when there's a crisis, we communicate because we work together, we train together, we have tabletop exercises, and we plan out and get to know each other before the event, before the big game day. And then we work on, these are the communication channels we will use. But we make sure that happens. And everyone in my region has my cell phone number, and I have theirs. So we can talk to each other if all else fails.
Thank you, sir. My time has expired, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
And that was a great answer. That's why I let you go on, because it was very important to get on the record. And I recognize the gentleman from Puerto Rico, Mr. Hernandez, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This hearing is about security preparedness, and what concerns me the most is that DHS has shown a consistent pattern of failing American citizens, the United States, the 50 states, the Commonwealths, and the territories in securing their reconstruction after natural disasters, after major events, and in securing their citizens and their residents from their policies. Now, this is a direct failure of leadership and policy at the DHS level. We have in place what I have to call a stupid policy that requires the DHS secretary to approve any expense over $100,000. And that is delaying the reconstruction and the projects in Puerto Rico and in many states that will prepare us to better handle major events or major natural disasters. And I've
received outreach from constituents. Projects like the Hector Solá Coliseum in Caguas, or projects like the backup generators from Fundación Comunitaria that give power and water to over 37,000 residents in Puerto Rico, are stalled because of this stupid policy. And I am concerned that as we speak of major events like the World Cup, like the Olympics, we are not ready to meet the demands of these events if we have not been able to meet the lesser demands of previous events. So, Mr. Nelson, it is my understanding that DHS owes Maryland nearly $1 billion in disaster-related expenses, including for costs that the federal government approved years ago. Can you describe the types of projects currently stalled because of the delays?
Yes, sir, and thanks for the question, because there has been an extreme delay, and what this also is causing is not just for these projects to be completed, similar to as they are in Puerto Rico, where we've had projects that are started, but we are uncertain if we'll be able to continue them because of the policy of the $100,000, but it's also the local time that these employees are investing into trying to manage these projects. Those are a lot of the same employees that are dedicated to special event planning and doing other emergency management activities that are now bogged down with the administrative burden of trying to manage this unpredictable nature.
And can you speak to how the timeline for disbursement has changed since this new policy was implemented?
Certainly. Well, I think it's fair to say that we don't know what the timeline is. There's consistent holds that are put for administrative review, and there's no real certainty on when the funds would be released. So we're still trying to rectify 25 and 24 funds. The future is really uncertain if we don't even know when those funds will be released. For example, we're on a deadline to accept awards by the end of 27th of February. However, those funds haven't been released, so we don't even know how can we accept them if there's an administrative hold. It gives us a very tight window by which we can do anything if we're not even notified in time to react.
So, if another major disaster were to strike tomorrow in Maryland, would your state be in a weaker position because of these funding delays?
Maryland will always lean in and take care of their people first. The governor is committed to doing that. However, it has greatly changed our posture and put more stress on our local governments and on our state budget of trying to always put public safety first and ensuring that, but other critical programs will likely have to sacrifice as a result.
So by extension, other states, commonwealths, and territories would also face, due to these policies, more strains, more risks, more adversity in accessing disaster funding and prevention capabilities.
And Maryland also realizes that we're in a position where we often lend assistance to other states and territories in a time of need. We'll be less positioned to do that because of decreasing capabilities and personnel. So it doesn't just impact Maryland, it impacts our ability to support other states and the regions because of our limited capability and needing to maximize our resources.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from South Carolina, Ms. Biggs, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. This year, it's a special year for the United States. Between the America 250 celebration and the FIFA World Cup, our country will host over 70 major events across more than a dozen states. And each event will need varying levels of security, with millions of Americans and foreign tourists and athletes traveling around the country. As we go into an eventful year, we must contend with a new potential avenue for threats, which is drones, which we've already talked about a little bit. The 2026 NDAA expanded the drone mitigation and the counter UAS authorities given to state and local authorities. And I know we talked a little bit with my friend from Alabama about the training and what's going to be required, and even with technology, but I'd like to hear a little bit more on how you think the federal, state, and local authorities will work together to mitigate those threats of drones to the major events in dozens of cities across the United States. And is there any way that counter UAS authorities could be improved for quicker and more efficient response to threats? And I'll leave that open to anyone who wants to respond.
If I may start, Mrs. Biggs, the area that we're currently in, the National Capital Region, has the most complex airspace of anywhere in the country. So the ability for us to deal with countering UAS is extremely important. However, I would just say that in addition to the capabilities, which has been, it's been great and moving one, however, we need to ensure that the plans and procedures are there and the network of which we're sharing information about the threats and our policies. During the Army-Navy game in Baltimore just this past December, there were several occasions where different federal agencies were mitigating drones, and we're not properly communicating that with our state and local partners to know what other risks may be at play. So I would just again highlight the importance of good planning and coordination between all levels in addition to training and capabilities.
And I'll echo that. We have a wonderful working relationship with our federal partners in Kansas City. And so one aspect is to detect, identify, mitigate, but we also have to have boots on the ground to go to interdict the operators. And so we're working to train together so that we're ready and prepared for World Cup.
For the last few years, across the world, people have been expanding drone capabilities to implement attacks. And at the same time, we've been fighting to get those resources at the state and local level. Now that we finally have the authorities to implement, now it's getting the training and technology in place. And the problem is that we have to defend large perimeters, large areas that need coverage. Not just the game day facility, but the practice fields, the fan fest areas, the official ones and the unofficial ones. And how do we cover all those places with mitigation technology? It's very difficult because we're way behind. I feel that, you know, if we had been having this conversation 2 years ago, we'd be in better shape. But today, as we're approaching these games, we're nowhere near the capability we need. But we continue to have to press forward with the technology and the training and getting it out to the largest group of people possible from the law enforcement side so we can cover all those simultaneous events that you were talking about that are spread across a huge geographical area. It's something that we have not dealt with in a long time to cover this much area in such a very short period of time with limited resources.
If there's one thing that you could ask Congress to step in and help with right now, what would that be to help you be prepared?
That prioritization of funding to train the personnel and get them to that training site. We need that immediately.
And the release of the FIFA funding would be critical for our staffing and our mutual aid partners to come in and assist, because we just don't have enough officers within my own department to cover down on all the threats. But we're going to be relying on those mutual aid partners and connections.
And yes, to both their comments, in addition to the personnel that are working on these plans and coordination are the same limited personnel that are doing the other special event planning, and that are also, many of their salaries are contingent on the funds that have not been released. So we are at a pivotal time where we may not just lose that capability, but the block from Jenga is about to cause the whole thing to come down.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you do. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Mr. Martinez, it looked like you were about to say something. Did you want to just say anything you had?
No, I just would like to echo what the other witnesses stated. You know, the release of the funds that have already been approved is absolutely critical.
Gentlelady yields back, and I recognize the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Evans, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman, and of course, our ranking member for this important hearing. And want to thank the witnesses for being here today and for all of your ongoing work and everything that you do to keep our nation and our communities safe. We're unfortunately all aware right now that we're in a partial government shutdown because my Democrat colleagues want to hold the federal government hostage and hold that funding hostage for vital national security and law enforcement agencies. And just in case we need a reminder, ICE has already been funded under provisions we secured last year in the Working Families Tax Cut. By refusing to pass the DHS funding bill, ICE isn't being defunded. What is being defunded is FEMA and TSA and the Coast Guard and FLETC, Federal Police Academy, and multiple other safety measures that are absolutely necessary ahead of massive events like the World Cup. In my home state of Colorado, let's talk about FEMA. There have been historically low amounts of snowfall this winter, which sets us up for a very dry season accompanied by very high wildfire risk. FEMA support is absolutely vital to the safety of my constituents even before a wildfire begins, and I know this because I served in the U.S. Army and the Colorado Army National Guard for 12 years. I was a Black Hawk helicopter pilot. I've flown on, dropped water on, and commanded National Guard soldiers assigned to fighting Type 1, so national priority incidents in the state of Colorado. And to prepare for that, we would always do, typically in April, a pre-operation planning conference just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Multiple different agencies, 15, 20 agencies, federal, state, and local, are on the same page to support and strengthen that collaboration in preparation for the wildfire season ahead. And without adequate funding for DHS, for agencies like FEMA, this interagency coordination is jeopardized, and more communities, more lives are at risk, to say nothing of the environmental damage that happens if we can't respond to things like wildfires. In addition to being in the National Guard, Mr. Mabin, my first question will be to you. I was also a local cop for 10 years, city of Arvada, first ring suburb, just to the northwest of Denver, which is another major city's agency. And so I wanted to ask you about, from your perspective, working for a major cities but local government agency, what lapses in funding are you seeing as a host city for the World Cup? And what information, what resources and capabilities do you see potentially lacking to close any information sharing or other planning gaps as you prepare to be a host city?
As far as information sharing, we are seeing, the regional Kansas City Fusion Center is our major intelligence sharing hub, and we haven't seen any lapses with regard to that. The information is flowing. We're sharing with our federal partners, our other state and local partners. We chip in and help each other to cover down on those kind of incidents. But just more broadly, we do need to see a release of the FIFA funds so that we can get staffing for officers. Because when it comes to the end of the day, we need X number of officers in these point positions, control positions, to execute our planning for World Cup.
Thank you. So again, I was a cop for 10 years, and so I kind of know how to read between the lines. So when you say chip in and help each other, that makes it sound like there's probably some Band-Aids that are being applied, and obviously we're in an open forum here. We don't want to forecast any mission-critical shortfalls. People would be surprised to know how many cops I often didn't have when I was trying to keep a city of 125,000 people peaceable and getting along. So I appreciate you commenting about chipping in and helping each other and the implications that go along with that. I'm also glad to hear you talk about fusion centers. My next question will be to Mr. Sina. Again, I mentioned 12 years in the National Guard, Black Hawk helicopter pilot, so rotary wing, low-level aviation operations, things like drones, counter-drone technology, super important to me, both as a rotary wing aviator, also a police officer, and everything that happens typically between 0 and 3,000 feet AGL. So here in my remaining about 30 seconds here, can you just comment on what is needed in this information sharing space to be able to effectively counter the emerging UAS threat?
The detection equipment, the personnel in place, the threat liaison officers to get the information out there on suspicious activity reporting. We need tips and leads. That Central California Intelligence Center threat to the Super Bowl that we received regarding drones, it's tips and leads. That's the bottom line. So we need people that can do the outreach. We need people that can do the training. And we also have field intelligence team members that are out there on the ground looking for those threats and working with teams to mitigate them as quickly as possible. Without the funding, without the resources, those teams aren't there. Those analysts aren't there. Those tips and lead processes are not there.
And I think as we've seen, this is a game-changing threat that we need to be able to counter. Mr. Chairman, yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and I recognize the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Alford, for 5 minutes of questions.
Well, thank you, Chairman Garbarino, for allowing me to wave on to this important hearing today. Kansas City is proud to serve, as you all know, as one of the host cities of the World Cup in Missouri's 4th Congressional District. Across the Kansas City region, local, state, and federal partners have been working diligently to prepare for the influx of visitors and the complex security environment that comes with an event like this. That's why today's hearing is so important. Strong, timely intelligence sharing between federal, state, and local and tribal territories and private sector partners is essential for preventing threats, managing crowds, and ensuring public safety. When that information flow works well, it enhances situational awareness and allows our local law enforcement to act quickly and confidently. And I'm particularly interested in ensuring that host cities like Kansas City are receiving the support, intelligence, and resources they need to execute security missions effectively. Deputy Chief Maben, good to see you here in the swamp.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for appearing before this committee today. The funding is not coming through from the federal government due to the holdup. What does that mean to Kansas City? Because the Kansas City budget is in trouble as it is, and in fact, Chief Stacy Graves, who's done a wonderful job of managing the great Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, is now having to cut costs severely to ensure just basic services. How is this holdup in funding affecting our plans to keep Americans safe in Kansas City this summer?
We began planning, full-time planning for this probably 2 years ago. We've taken into account multiple different contingencies. We have planning at the stadium, at the different hotel venues, at the Fan Fest, equipment, intelligence, and just operationally. And as we have those plans in place, if we do not have people to execute those plans, then those plans are ineffective. And so right now we're in a critical stage where we need those funds committed and released so that our mutual aid partners have assurances and they can come in and assist us with just boots on the ground for those plans.
For those who don't know, Kansas City is in the heart of America, heart of Missouri, heart of America. It sits at the intersection of I-49 and I-70, which before now was already a hub for human trafficking. I know that is a huge concern for your department and those also dealing with the safety. Talk about that.
And we are aware that on major sporting events, it's also always a concern of human trafficking. And so we're trying to get that message out to our local partners. We're working with hotels and the airport to recognize signs of human trafficking. We've trained our officers to recognize signs and to be able to respond and get folks resources. We're also working with the FBI on task forces so we can combat human trafficking. It is a major concern, and that it features heavily in our plans for the World Cup.
And of course, the border is shut down a lot better than it was under President Biden, but fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine are still big issues in the Kansas City region.
Yes, as they are with other large cities. And so we work closely with our federal partners on task forces to combat drug trafficking organizations, human trafficking, and other violent criminal organizations.
Well, Deputy Chief, thank you again for being here, and to all of our partners in Kansas City, thank you as well. It's going to be a fabulous turnout. We're expecting some 600,000 people to converge on Kansas City for this, to show off Kansas City once again. I will say to the Democrats out there listening now, we have fully funded ICE through the One Big Beautiful Bill. So that fight is not a good fight for you to take up right now. What you are putting in jeopardy is the safety of American citizens that rely on FEMA, that rely on the Coast Guard, that rely on the Secret Service, that rely on cybersecurity to keep us safe in America. It is time to end the partial shutdown led by the Democrats. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and I want to thank the witnesses all for traveling here today. One thing clear, we got to get you all the money. So that's our job. So thank you all again for being here, and I have additional questions that I will be submitting in writing, and the members the committee may have some additional questions for you, and we would ask that you all respond to these in writing. Pursuant to Committee Rule 7E, the hearing record will be held open for 10 days. Without objection, this committee stands adjourned.